You're listening to the Teach Better Talk podcast featuring expert educators eager to share progressive tactics to reach more students. Teach Better Talk is created by teachers and fueled by passion. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 108 of Teach Better Talk. I'm Ray Hewart, and as always, I am with the very driven Jeff Gargis.
Driven. I
Very
like it.
driven. Not like as in you drive a lot, but you're driven, like you pursue better, you do all those things.
Well, I think it wouldn't be like I drive a lot. It'd be like I'm driven around a lot, which like I'm not quite that famous yet. I'm
Wouldn't
on my
it be
way,
cool
but I'm
if
not.
you had a driver that drove you around?
Yeah, well, I feel like when you come into Ohio, like I'm your driver.
You are actually, and
Like
I'll be
picking
coming
up,
to Ohio in a few weeks, so I'm excited for that.
If you're listening, you need to picture this. So I pull up at the airport to pick Ray up, and it's just me in the car, but she gets in the back seat.
That's not true.
And she tells me where to go.
That's not true.
It's just one of those things.
Let's clarify. Usually when I get into Ohio to visit you, it's very late at night, like midnight. It takes me forever to get there. And I'm usually the only person standing outside the airport, and I'm typically dancing because I'm so excited to see you.
That's true. That's pretty accurate. Yeah, that's a much better thing.
Did you hear my plug, by the way? I made a comment like pursue better. Did you catch that? Did you catch that plug?
No, where did you plug that at? Just now?
I said, yeah, when I was talking about you being driven, I was like, yeah, Jeff, you pursue better. Like nudge, nudge, book chapter.
Yeah, so what's that? What's that a plug for? That's chapter 1 of the book.
Pursue
hey,
better.
Ray, guess what?
What?
Last week we released a book.
Can you believe that?
Yeah, no, I can't.
I legitimately can't.
Yeah, it was crazy. I remember when we got the link that the book was on Amazon. We needed to go set up like our author profiles, and I was just like, "Whoa!
Geeking out.
Like this is actually happening right now. I don't realize that." So super cool. Yeah. So the book came out September 25th on Amazon. It's at Barnes & Noble. It's gonna be at a bunch of other places too. And you can obviously get it on teachbetter.com as well. I'm excited about it, Ray. It's been a fun week.
It's been a fun week, but it's also been exhausting because you have all these people sharing out that they ordered their book on Amazon or picked it up at Barnes & Noble. I love that everyone's taking pictures, that they're sharing that they're reading the book. And I've already seen numbers come through for the book study, which is an awesome way for teachers to now be reading the book and collaborate with either people in their building or people that they're connected with virtually about kind of their thoughts on every chapter. And I think the structure of the book is very strange. And I want to say that in a better way, but I don't know what word to use. I didn't mean strange like odd. I meant cool, like neat. Is
unique? I think unique is the word you're looking for.
Unique. There we go. So neat wasn't it? We'll do unique. That's better.
Yeah. So I agree. I think it's unique. So let's talk about that for a second, Ray. Like break it down. It's a unique fit because there's 4 of us. So we decided to go kind of unique way of putting it together. So for anybody who's listening that doesn't have the book yet, shame on you. No, anybody who's listening who doesn't have the book yet, Ray, like explain how that's breaking down because I love how we did. I really like the way we set the book up, and I love the way it's structured.
I completely agree. And I think it stemmed from our passion from the Teach Better team and kind of taking the same philosophy of how we've been helping educators for years and then trying to put that into a book. It was a non-negotiable that this book had to have tactical takeaways that you could be sitting on your couch, reading a chapter, go to sleep, and then the following day, put that into action in your classroom. I mean, we wanted it to be like an overnight experience if you were searching for a way to do something better. So the way that we've kind of structured that in the book is that every single chapter focuses on doing something better. So we have pursue better, manage better, connect better. And there are all these strategies within the chapter. And some benefits to that is you can not only implement something the following day, so you're really using your reading and putting it into action, but there's also some great thought-provoking moments where if you're interested in a philosophical shift in your classroom, if you want to be more student-focused and have that progressive style of classroom, I think this is a great conversation starter for starting to have those long-term philosophical transformations as well. In addition to that, Jeff, I think that a big element that the Teach Better team, cares a lot about is trying to be raw and authentic for our audience. We joke a lot on this podcast. I think people get to know our personality pretty well. You see the same thing when we go live on Facebook and when we, have mastery chat. I mean, we're real teachers, we're real people, and we want our network to know that we're not just, sitting at a desk in some large corporation. We really love what we do because we get to be in classrooms constantly. And so to be able to kind of bring that into the book, we've put our own personal stories within every single chapter to talk about our journeys as people in the education field. And I was a little nervous about this, to be honest. I think it left me kind of anxious before the book release because there's a lot of stories in there that are really personal. And I'm like, oh my gosh, people are going to read those. Like, did you have that moment at all? I kind of freaked out.
Yeah. I mean, definitely there's a definite vulnerability to it. And I think that's one of the things I think I love most about it. But I was at the same spot as you, a little bit nervous. I've been happy with how people have received that. And I think that comes across that we were being authentic and that we're trying to share that because we want you to know that we all have those stories. We all have those moments. We've all felt that way, right? That failure or that struggle or that challenge that you come across. So I think that was really important for us. We discussed that a lot about really just being authentic, being real, being raw, sharing those personal stories so that they could really connect. And that's how we've always connected with each other. So I think it just made sense that way.
No, I couldn't agree more. And having it out has been amazing. I love that we have this balance between it being a book that you can work on yourself as an educator, but also being an easy read that you can enjoy. You don't need to have like a pen and paper out taking notes necessarily. I mean, this is an easy read, and we wanted that balance. So it was cool to be able to kind of see that come to fruition.
Definitely. But if you do want to pull out a pen and paper and work on it, we do have an awesome book study over at the teachbetteracademy.com that goes along with it. It's free, but it's a really cool thing, I think. It has 3 parts to every chapter: before the reading, during the reading, and then a Teach Better challenge that really helps you do what Ray's saying, like the ability to read the chapter and put something into action the next day. And I love that. So I'm glad that you brought that up.
Jeff, we also have the website though too, and I feel like that's separate because as you go throughout the book, we reference a number of different, things in education. And rather than explaining them necessarily in the book, we give you a resource that, hey, did you hear something that you want to learn more about? Here's a ton of different resources that you can go explore. Yeah. So that's actually like outside the book study though. So we have so many different supports depending on where you're at as a teacher for you to, explore these concepts further, which is really interesting. I don't know that I've seen that in a lot of books. I've seen it before, but I think that that's kind of another unique element of this book.
Yeah, we're pretty awesome, Ray. I mean, that's what I'm getting from all this is that no, we really are.
Write the book, Jeff? We just put your name on it to be nice.
No, I just snuck my name on it. That's all. No, so we're super excited about it. And a huge thanks to Dave and Shelley Burgess for taking a chance on us and working with us on the book. But really excited. So if you want it, it's at Amazon. It's on Barnes & Noble. It's on teachbetter.com. You can get it through the Dave Burgess website as well. We hope you do it. We hope you share it out, everything you're thinking, and hopefully you take away some value from it. So speaking of value and taking away value, Ray, this episode of Teach Better Talk
was awesome.
Yeah, so we talked about it early on how we don't know how it took us so long to get Dan on this because we've been connected with him in an awesome Voxer group for edu podcasters and stuff for a while, and he's such a good guy and just full of so much. I just love his outlook on things. But so real quick, so Dan Kreiness he's an instructional leader. He's a podcast host. He's currently a doctoral candidate. This guy is just constantly looking for the most effective ways to advance learning and really just to take and produce high student achievement. So he hosts the podcast Leader of Learning. He's an ELA instructional coach in the Norwalk Public School District in Norwalk, Connecticut. He's got a master's degree. He's going for his doctorate right now. He was the 2017 ASCD Emerging Leader. He's a Google certified educator, a Nearpod pioneer. Flipgrid ambassador, Wakelet ambassador. I could go on and on and on and on and on. He's phenomenal. And he's just, with all of that, he's also just a good guy. And I love that about Dan. So this episode, super cool. We dive into lots of Dan recently made a big transition in his career to a new district and a new position. He really gets, speaking of authenticity and being raw and real, he gets really raw and real with us about the struggle that he went through from leaving one district and going to another and why that happened and what occurred. And I just love how he shares that. He dives into that. He talks a lot about just building those relationships and how that's helped him get through things, working with teachers as an instructional leader. I just love how raw he gets and how real he is with us. Ray, anything you want listeners to take away?
I'm just a huge fan of him in general. And so I hope you enjoyed this episode, but I also hope you go tune into his podcast because he's doing incredible things. So go subscribe.
And with that, let's get into episode 108 with Dan Kreiness.
Hey everyone, it's Ray. We're going to get right back to the episode, but I want to talk about one of my favorite groups, the Illinois Digital Educators Alliance, IDEA. Now, for those of you that don't know, this is a statewide non-for-profit organization. For those of you that listened to our episode with Amber Hefner, this was one of the first conferences I was able to attend as a teacher as I started my career. Now, I had no idea that they actually had membership benefits. They have a free annual membership, and it provides so many professional development opportunities. It has the IDEA Con, the Student Technology Showcase, scholarships, awards, mini grants, oh my goodness. And there's over 21 local chapters statewide. I would absolutely encourage you to go check out more at ideaillinois.org and make sure that you follow them on all their social media platforms. Now let's get back to the episode.
All right, we are here and we are talking with Dan Kreiness. And Dan, we were just talking about how we can't believe it's taken us this long to get you on the podcast, but we're super excited that we have you on tonight. Super excited to kind of dive into things with you, chat with you. You've got a new position at a new school in a new state, which is awesome. You got your own podcast, which is great. So we got a lot to talk about here. But first off, I just want to ask you, man, how you feeling right now?
I'm great. You said great a few times, and I'm going to just echo that. I'm great. I am in a new position at a new school, and what's really cool about that is it's an exciting time in our school and our district, and so I'm really pumped up about doing the work that I'm getting to do now with the teachers in my building. And we've barely been in school for a month yet, but already so many great things happening. So things are good.
Dan, I can't wait to hear all the stories that I'm confident you're going to bring to this episode. But before we get started, I want our listeners to get to know your background and really kind of dive deeper into this new job that you have. So would you mind taking a minute and kind of sharing about all that you do?
Absolutely. So I guess the best way I kind of describe myself and introduce myself as an educator is I call myself an instructional leader, but really my day job, my title is an instructional coach. And it's always a little bit hard to explain what an instructional coach is to people, especially non-educators. But basically what I tell them is that I'm a teacher, only instead of teaching students, I teach the teachers. So that helps people kind of understand a little bit better what I do. Now, my role that I'm in this year, starting this year, is as an instructional coach of just one department. I'm a former ELA and reading teacher, so my focus is to support the teachers in the ELA department in my school. We're 6th, 7th, and 8th grades. I work with about 9 teachers and just really support the ELA department as best I can in terms of, instructional strategies and technologies and making teaching and learning a better process than it already is at the school.
I love it. So let's dive in. I want to dive into the fact that you're at a new school and a new spot. Now, the previous position you were you in a instructional coach position there, or is that brand new for you as well?
So I would say the vast majority of my time over the last 5 or 6 years of my career have been spent in coaching roles, but they've all looked a little bit different. A few years ago, I was an instructional coach in a middle school that was much smaller, and I was essentially coaching teachers in all content areas, which was a lot of fun, although it was kind of nerve-wracking at first because stepping out of the ELA classroom, I'm also certified in music as well, but I've never actually taught it. Those are the subject areas that I know, and being asked to coach teachers in all other subject areas was, like I said, a little nerve-wracking at first, but got some really great experiences. I was put back in the classroom briefly, but then I bounced out of there and I took an administrative role for much of last year. What was great about that is there was still so much coaching involved in the role. Without getting too deep into it, the position is unlike so many administrative positions in that it was only focused on instruction. There was no student discipline in there or anything. And so I did spend quite a lot of my time in classrooms and coaching teachers, and even coaching teachers through their evaluation processes, which it's always kind of a fine line that you walk between being an evaluator and a coach. But I think I was doing it pretty well.
So then let's talk about moving to a brand new district and into at least a slightly different role. There may be some people listening right now who are going through the same thing, and maybe they're struggling with that. You seem to have kind of settled in well, and you're enjoying your time so far at your new district. You're in there. I've talked with you through Voxer and stuff. So, any tips on for maybe there's teachers out who are starting either their first job or going in, but specifically changing either positions and or school districts, going into a very unfamiliar culture, unfamiliar student population, maybe an unfamiliar position or role in their school. How have you been able to adjust to that and kind of make it your own and get yourself back into the rhythm of things?
Man, that's a great question. I think first and foremost, and it's so cliche to say, but it's all about relationships. Getting to know the people, getting to know what positions they're in and how they operate. It really does go a long way. But I think just in terms of the culture in the building, you got to really feel that out. If you're new to a building, get to know the routines and procedures as quickly as possible, I think is huge. I still haven't really visited the cafeteria during lunchtime yet because that's always a little intimidating. But otherwise, I've tried to really experience as many of the school procedures as I possibly can to get to know the lay of the land. I would say specific to some educator out there who might be listening to this and has an interest in jumping into an instructional coaching role or some position that's out of the classroom, that's not an actual teaching position, or may have them focus more on adult learning. That's what really interests me quite a bit at this point. And I would say that if you're interested in a position like that, get to know as much as you can about how adults learn, especially when it comes to things like growth mindset and different leadership practices that can kind of tap into each teacher's unique style so that you can really work with them to support them as they need, kind of like we do with our students when we differentiate for them.
Very cool. I love it. All right, so let's talk about failure a little bit. So we talk about obviously on this podcast. We've talked about a lot. You and I were Ray as well. We're in a really awesome Voxer group, and we talk about this. We share these things a lot, and I love that about that. So I'm going to ask you to do that now too. If you can share a time that you've had a failure in your career, tell us what happened. Why was it a failure? How did it make it feel? How did you overcome it? And then what did you take away from that experience?
Yeah. And so because we are in a Voxer group together and speak quite often, you've probably heard this before, but I do want to open up about an experience that I had fairly recently. It was last year, and I've already alluded to it a little bit, but, basically I did not things did not go well for me in the administrative position that I was in much of last year. I enjoyed the position, but there were aspects of the school that I just could never really become comfortable with. First of all, it was an unbelievably long commute, about an hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes each way. So that was very difficult. I was getting home late at night. And then really just things didn't work out on the administrative team that I was on. And that's difficult to say. It's definitely hard to admit. But what I learned from that quote unquote failure is sometimes it's just a matter of whether or not someone or something is the right fit. I can say with an absolute surety that if you ask many of the teachers in the building, they would say that they really appreciated me, my administrative and leadership style, and also how I was working with them in terms of, like I said, being an evaluator, but also being a coach. But I'm pretty sure also that if you ask the other administrators in the building, they would probably be honest and say, we don't really think he fit in very well. And so at the end of the day, I ended up leaving the district, and now I found something that I think fits a lot better. And as much as it stings that I worked so hard, I think, through the first 13 plus years of my career to get into an administrative position, and only to have my first experience last 8 months. It depends. Like, you can look at that as a failure, or you could say, I learned a lot from it, and now I've moved on and I'm in a better place, and, just really don't look back upon it.
Yeah, I think that's such an important lesson. We talk about that a lot on this podcast, and I love that you went there with it. Is that, yeah, it stings, and yeah, it wasn't fun, I'm sure, at the time. I remember when you shared that with us actually in the group, but the important piece is that you're able to reflect now and see that it was actually for the better, and maybe it made more sense for you to move on, and now you're in a spot that you're feeling good about and able to impact other teachers in a new way. So I think it's really important to always reflect back on those things that we thought were failures that might have stung a little bit, and find that positive, find the lesson we can learn. So I love that you took it there. So let's flip it now. Let's talk about a successful moment you've had. And this can be something big, something small, but tell us what happened. Why was it a success for you? And then what'd you take away from that?
I've had a lot of successes, and to be honest, and I was just having this conversation with someone this afternoon. Just over the last 3 years, 4 years of my career, I can really point out so many things, and I think it all comes down to the fact that I'm well connected now, and doing the podcast, and just having so much fun connecting with educators from all over. But if I could point to one thing that I think just meant the most to me, I was very proud. In 2017, I was able to be recognized as an ASCD Emerging Leader. And, even when I kind of publicized that after being named to the 2017 class, I even said, like, as educators, we don't look for individual awards or accolades or like to be in the spotlight. We always say, "Oh, all the work I do, it's always about the kids." And yeah, and I believe that wholeheartedly. Don't get me wrong, but it was really nice to be recognized by ASCD, and by whoever had input and voted on the 2017 class. And it just really meant a lot. And I've been able to actually have some really great opportunities and experiences open up based on my being recognized as an emerging leader.
Dan, something I really love about the stories you've told is the rawness. And I'm not sure how to phrase that. That's not the right way to phrase it. But I really appreciate your vulnerability during your stories, because your first story about failure is something that I'm confident numerous people listening to our podcast wouldn't feel comfortable saying. Admitting that you're not a good fit somewhere somehow seems personal, when in reality, we all either have or may in the future take on a role that, surrounded by the people, just isn't the right fit. And I think that we see that as a reflection on us, when in reality, not everybody is the right fit in every situation with the people. And I guess I don't want to focus on that too much, but I think that's...
Well, no, actually, if I could just jump in for a second, I think one of the points you made was a really, really good one. It could seem really personal. For me, I spent 8 months feeling like I didn't really fit in. And so it wasn't so much of a shock, I suppose. But to hear that someone doesn't really want you to continue working in their school, it definitely comes as a big blow. However, even the other administrators in the building were saying that they loved me, personally, and that I'm a nice guy. And it just, between the hassle of the commute, and I had some issues, in my personal life that I had to deal with, that unfortunately took me away from my job for several days out of the year. It just couldn't continue. And so I hear you. It could be personal, and it is. But I just really think that at the end of the day, being so focused on the work and your job and what it is that you really want to do in education is what's going to get you through it.
I'm going to jump in too, because I love, Dan, that you look at it that way, because I think it can be personal, but I also think sometimes it's not the right thing at the right time in the right situation, and it's not actually personal. It's just a situational thing, especially the way you talk about how they said they liked the way you worked with the teachers and the way you supported things. So I think your outlook for that is really great. I just wanted to commend you on that.
No, I couldn't agree more. I really want our listeners to take that in, because there are so many situations that we can mirror your same philosophy to. And I think that that's so valuable, Dan. And your other story about the ASCD Emerging Leaders, it's kind of like on the other side, right? You have this amazing accomplishment and you want to stay humble, but there's also a reality to educators love to be recognized. And I think it's amazing that there are so many avenues in education where we can celebrate each other. And I'm so envious and proud of that Emerging Leader Award. That's amazing. So, with that being said, you obviously have done a ton in your career and people are noticing, and you're, constantly somebody that people are going to for insight. What really fuels your fire in education? What keeps you in this positive note of knowing that you are doing what's right for kids and you love supporting the teachers that are also impacting those same students? So what's exciting you about education right now?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much for the kind words. I really appreciate that. There's a lot that excites me. At this point in my career, like I said, I work mostly with the adults and inspiring the other teachers that I get to support in the ELA department. And, being in so many different coaching roles over the last few years, I'm really fired up about adult learning, helping inspire teachers, support teachers. As a matter of fact, I know we haven't talked too much about my podcast yet, but after every episode of the Leader of Learning podcast, I always say, no matter who you are or where you are, you too can be a leader of learning. So it's even more, it's like deeper than just trying to support teachers and inspire teachers. It's really just trying to get them to realize how much of a leader they are as well, even if they don't know it, even if they have just quote unquote, just a classroom teacher title. They don't have an administrative title. They're still leaders. They can still be leaders. And so I'm really passionate about getting teachers everywhere, not just in my school or in my district, to think of themselves as leaders and who are so willing to adapt and respond to educational trends, the ever evolving needs of today's students, just really push themselves. And sort of to piggyback off of that, in addition to being an educator and being a podcaster, I'm also a doctoral student. I've just had my study approved to now move forward with and conduct my research, and I'm researching school administrators' transformational leadership practices that inspire a growth mindset in teachers. So I'm really passionate about finding out what it is that leaders in schools are doing to inspire that kind of growth and that growth mindset in teachers, that in turn then pushes their students to want to grow and achieve more.
Wow, what an incredible topic. I cannot wait to read what you come up with.
Well, it's already 94 pages, and I'm about 3/5 of the way through it. If you know anything about doctoral dissertations, they need to be 5 chapters. I've already written 3, and it's 94 pages, so it's going to be quite lengthy by the time it's all said and done.
Well, I'm sad to say our listeners probably know I'm not a big reader, but I can put that into a PDF and use an app and have it read it to me, and I'm game. I'm game.
Perfect.
Well, Dan, you've obviously done a ton, but I want to kind of shift over to advice. You're working with teachers constantly. You've obviously led students, thousands of students in your career. What type of advice do you need to give new teachers or people that are new to the job, kind of similar to your role right now? What advice do they need to stay in this progressive mentality of, achieving all the things that you're also striving to instill in them?
I think when it comes to new teachers, especially, or teachers, actually, maybe even veteran teachers who are sort of just stuck in a rut, it's not fresh and it's not maybe as stimulating a career as it once was. I think getting connected, and whether that's on social media or not, just realizing that developing yourself as an educator can't happen if you're teaching in isolation. I believe it was George Couros in The Innovator's Mindset who basically said that at this point, and that book came out, I want to say 2015, 2016, at this point, isolation is a choice. You're choosing to close yourself off in your own classroom, your own school, your own district, and not branch out and learn from other people. So whether it's social media, whether it's conferences, podcasts, I mean, look, we all believe highly in the power of the podcast. Get connected, reach out and branch out and find out how to break into the profession, find out how to make it new and exciting, but get connected. That's the first piece of advice. And then to kind of go back on what I was saying a minute ago in terms of my passion and my interest in growth mindset, I think I would advise any educator, regardless of the amount of experience they have, whether they're new to the profession or not, get comfortable being uncomfortable. We all know, if we've been doing it for a while, education changes constantly. I mean, every couple of years, we're doing something new. We're teaching a different program. We might be teaching a different subject. You have to be flexible. You have to get comfortable being uncomfortable and really expect that every once in a while, something new is going to get thrown at you and you're going to have to roll with the punches and really just stay true to your why. Why is it that you are an educator in the first place? And hopefully that's student growth and achievement, and really getting students prepared for what's going to be ahead of them in their lives, in their careers, and in the future.
That is some fantastic advice. Dan, I have to ask, are you comfortable right now?
I am comfortable, and sometimes that means being uncomfortable. There we go.
We're about to get uncomfortable right now. Because we're going to see
the worst dad you've had is a non-bird.
No. You don't get to throw worst on that one. That was bad, but I've done way worse than that. That's
all right. I've also been way more uncomfortable. So hit me with it.
All right, we're going to do the next 6 questions. Your goal is to answer each one in 15 seconds or less. What is one ed tech tool you cannot live without?
I would say, as an instructional coach, especially, Google Calendar is my friend. Google Calendar all the way.
Give us a book you're reading right now.
So yeah, I just finished Innovate Inside the Box. I just mentioned George Couros and his co-author Katie Novak were guests of mine on the podcast. I really enjoyed that book.
And who do we need to follow on Twitter or Instagram today?
You know what? Another shout out to a former guest of the Leader of Learning podcast. Her handle is at Ask Miss Q. That is Saba Kidwai, a fellow doctoral candidate.
What's a good YouTube channel or website for educators?
I'm going to shout out two. One is a really good friend of mine, Claudio Zavala Jr., who shares a lot about photography and videography and just creating content. And also Baruti Kafele, or Principal Kafele, does an amazing YouTube channel for leadership.
Give us a daily, weekly, or monthly routine every teacher should get into.
You know what? I'm just going to tell every educator, regardless of your role, do your best to try and leave work at work.
And what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
It wasn't advice that was given directly to me. That would have been really awkward. But Teddy Roosevelt, it's the thing that he said about no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. I just really think that holds true, like in every facet of education whatsoever.
I do not think he was uncomfortable at all, Ray. He nailed it.
I don't think you gave him enough pressure, Jeff. Like, we needed to give him the visual image of you sitting in your basement with the sweatband and the stopwatch. And you needed to, be more intense with your voice. I feel like we should redo it. I'm just saying. Well, Dan was far too relaxed.
Or I'm just a pro. I don't know.
How about this? Hey, Ray, can you get, really intense for this next question and really put the pressure on the next one?
Before I get to this next question, I am a little disappointed that Teddy Roosevelt didn't give you that quote himself.
I know. If he did, I'd probably be 100 years old?
We still would love to have you, Dan. That's not a problem.
Yeah, it'd be even cooler, I think, at that point.
Yeah.
So I have the most important and most challenging question of the night. Dan, are you ready?
Will it make me uncomfortable?
It might. And I hate to do that to you because you're almost at the end. And right now, this is going to be the worst part.
All right. Well, I'm going to have to take my own advice then.
So it's kind of like that moment when you're about to get a shot at the doctor's office and you're anticipating it. All right, moving on.
Hit me. Here we go.
Dan, I want to know how people can connect with you. Would you mind sharing all of your social handles and websites that our listeners can connect with you on?
Yeah, that wasn't so bad.
Well, you
All
know,
right, anyway.
you got me all frazzled when you made fun of me.
It's like I have little kid, young kids, and they go to the doctor and they get psyched out about shots, and then it's not so bad. All right, here we go. You can connect with me on, definitely leaderoflearning.com is where you can find everything from the podcast to the blog to where you connect on social media. I am at D Kreiness, basically everywhere, Twitter, Instagram, Voxer. So I would say leaderoflearning.com, and then find me on social media at D Kreiness. That's DKREINESS.
And I do really want to push you all to go listen to Leader of Learning, that podcast. It's phenomenal. We didn't get into it in this episode, but you definitely need to go check it out. Make sure you subscribe to it, give a rating and review. We talk about rating and review a lot on this podcast about how it helps us to get these amazing stories out to more people. It does the same with that podcast. It works the same. So make sure you find that on all your favorite channels and push that out as well. You can find all the stuff we talked about, all the links, all the resources that we mentioned in this episode over at teachbetter.com, as well as those really important links for connecting with Dan and getting connected with his podcast as well. So make sure you head over to teachbetter.com for all of that. Be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. And then, like I just said, if you can give us a rating and a review as well, we'd really, really appreciate that. And let's continue to take this one step further. Think of just 3 of your colleagues who need to hear these amazing stories and share this podcast with them. Dan, this was awesome. So glad you came on and got real with us and shared, where you're at in your career now and your stories and this transition you're in. I think that was super valuable. You absolutely knocked it out of the park with the 6 questions, and we just really appreciate your time and coming on, man. Thank you.
Jeff, Ray, I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for having me on. I don't care how long it took. I still appreciate you guys very much. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
And until next time, let's get out there and let's teach better.